Hi all, it's the end of week 2 and I wanted to help you process some of the stuff that you've been working with this week in case you had some questions or things that you were stuck on. A few things that you worked on. We read the Richard and Paula cartoon and I think that's pretty potent. One of the things I like about it is thinking whether Richard might want to, if he was given a choice, would Richard want to be born in Paula's house? And my guess is probably not. And if we were to ask Paula the same question, would she like to be born in Richard's house? She would very likely say yes. And to me that's important in the way of thinking that if you're kind of not willing to switch places with somebody, then you know that something's unfair. You know that something is up if you wouldn't quickly be willing to switch places. It was kind of my mom's way of doing fairness in our house, where when somebody had to cut a piece of cake, you'd make sure that you cut it right down the middle because the other kid would get to choose which piece they got. And if you kind of cut it lopsided, the other kid would choose the big piece. To me, this is really important in terms of justice and fairness, is if you don't want somebody else's life, you kind of know that it was not set up in a very good way. You also read the 101 privilege article, and I had you think about specifically point number 3 in there, which was talking about how privilege doesn't negate oppression. So sometimes folks get confused and say, well, I could never be an oppressor because I am oppressed. And the thing is, we're going to talk about how you can be both. You can be oppressor and oppressed in one person. And that's what we're trying to get at in this class, is the concept of intersectionality, that you have a lot of identities within one person. It's never just one. That's what you've been working on with the social location map. And that's something that's going to be central to this class, is recognizing that that oppressions interact in the way they play into each other. So it's not the same being poor as being poor and black. It's not the same being queer as being queer and a woman. So thinking about how those things play into each other is pretty much what we're going to be doing for the rest of the term. The materials that I've chosen in this class have to do with the ways that oppressions share similarities. So there's a lot of ways in which the patterns repeat. There's a lot of similarities between sexism and racism, a lot of similarities between ageism and ableism. And we're looking for those patterns that repeat in order to see the ways that oppressions can kind of reach into each other, and hopefully to develop a little bit of empathy from one to the other. So, for example, when I assign you materials on racism, you're reading about white fragility, my goal is to have you think about whether there could be such a thing as male fragility, or whether ableist fragility would be similar, or in what ways it might be different. But remember not to get hung up on only one of the oppressions as you're reading the articles, because pretty much I'm hoping that you can grab from one and apply the lessons to another one. You had the concept of the good-bad binary in one of the readings, and that can be a tricky one to understand. What they're trying to say there is that we have this notion that people are racist instead of people do racist things, and this notion that you can either be all good or all bad. And it kind of lets people off the hook instead of saying, I'm not like those racist people. I could never be racist because I'm one of the good people. It kind of lets them check out and lets them off the hook and not have to worry about whether they benefit from racism. So they may never be the ones telling the racist jokes, but they certainly are benefiting from racism. And finally, one of the biggest things that you were working on this week is the Mcintosh Article. Mcintosh Article is one of my favorites. There's a lot of problems with it, but it's one of my favorites in that she kind of takes the leap of faith and saying, I'm really frustrated at my male colleagues. I don't see why they don't get what sexism is like. I kind of think they're playing dumb. Until she actually goes looking and says, well, other people are saying there's this racism thing. Even though I don't think it's there, I'm going to trust that there may be something there, and I'm going to go looking for it. That's a big leap of faith. It's kind of giving somebody the benefit of the doubt and saying, even though I don't think so, you're saying something, I'm going to hear you out. And that leap of faith is something I'm trying to help you think through and say, well, okay, I understand racism. That one hurts me, so I get that one. But ableism, maybe they're exaggerating on that count. You want to kind of dial back and say, it's likely that I'll think that they're overplaying it because I don't suffer from it. It's really likely that I'll downplay it because I benefit from this particular oppression. When it comes to privilege, something to think about is the fact that we are always talking about a comparison. So let's break it down. Mcintosh says that privilege is an unearned advantage. So there's two parts to this. The unearned part, which means that you're getting this advantage not because of something you did, but because of who you are. It's because of an identity that you hold, not because of a task that you completed or a skill that you developed. It's something that you got that you didn't actually earn. It was gifted to you because of who you are. That's part one. Part two is that an advantage means that it's a comparison. I am advantaged compared to that person. I'm getting ahead compared to them. This comparison part is really important because we never talk about privilege as an absolute. We always do a comparison of 1 to 1. So we could say, we would never say that because your life, I'm sorry, let me rattle back. We would never say that because you have privilege that your life is easy, but we would say that your life is easier than somebody else's life. So being poor is hard. Being poor and black is harder. So let's use me as an example. My first language is not English. So if we were going to think about English language privilege, if I were to look at that person over there who is a native English speaker, their life is easier than mine because I get tongue-tied. I can't come up with the right word at the right time. I may have a hard time coming up with grammatically correct phrases sometimes. So my life is harder than theirs. On the other hand, if I were to look at somebody who speaks English with a really thick accent or who has a much more limited vocabulary, my life is much easier than theirs. So we're always doing a comparison. Harder than, easier than. So never absolutes. In terms of racism, I benefit from light skin privilege. So my life is harder than somebody who's white and who is a U.S. citizen, for example. But it is much, much easier than somebody who has darker skin tone, for example, where the police would be more likely to get aggressive with them. So we're always doing a comparison. It's never an absolute. Keep that in perspective as you're thinking and talking about privilege. You worked with the social location map, and this is my social location map. You may mark yours or choose not to mark yours, but I kind of like the idea of seeing the graphic on there. If you find yourself on the agent side a lot, so if you have a lot of these agent identities, this class is going to be a little bit harder for you to process. Specifically because if you don't have a lot of experience with oppression, you have to learn about it through books. You can't quickly and emotionally connect to your experience. You have to kind of learn it through your head, and that's a little bit harder than connecting to it through your heart and your own experience. So this class is going to be more challenging for you. If you find that you have 16 out of the 18 privileges, there may be points in this class where you get a little more defensive or incredulous. That's a good word. So keep that in mind as you're going through. One analogy that I like for thinking of privilege is the idea that privilege is like being born on third base. So you're almost at the home run. Somebody got you almost all the way there. The thing about it is that not only were you born on third base, but you think that you hit a triple. So you feel pretty proud of yourself, and you feel like you got this accomplishment by yourself. So not only did you have it handed to you, which makes your life easier, but then you get to feel proud and a little bit cocky and say, those people over there, they didn't hit a triple like I did. That one, and I also like the analogy of a video game. So thinking of privilege like playing on the lowest setting of a video game where you're playing beginner mode and the monsters are really small and your sword is really huge, and when you take a hit, it's really easy to recover. Having disadvantages and having oppression pile up on you is like playing at the advanced level where one little hit from the monster has you reeling and takes you much longer to recover, or the level is much longer and there's less treasure to be found. Little cute analogies that help me kind of think this through. I think we are on track. We're going to be talking about agent ignorance this coming week, and I will do a wrap-up video like this one at the end of the week as well to see if I can help you get some of the concepts that may be tricky in there. I hope you're having a good start to your term.